Call the meeting to order, please. Roll call, Cassandra.
Legislator Hathaway.
Here.
Legislator Verkler. Here. Legislator Burns.
Here.
Legislator Gilbert.
Here.
Legislator Chartrand.
Here.
Legislator Moorhan. Here. Legislator Leviker.
Here.
Legislator Osborne.
Here.
Legislator Nellenbach.
Here.
And Legislator Dahlhoff.
Here. Please stand for the invocation and the pledge. Legislator Gilbert, would you lead us in the invocation, please?
Heavenly Father, we thank you for bringing us together again safely for this meeting. Give us grace, wisdom, and patience as we work through our agenda. We're deeply grateful for the blessings we enjoy in this community and nation of prosperity, peace, and our precious freedoms. We lift up those around the world whose freedoms are in danger. I pray you would protect the innocent, the children, and the elderly, and intervene to bring about a peaceful end to the crisis in Ukraine. Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The February 24th board meeting minutes have been distributed. If there are no amendments, they stand approved. Report of the Finance and Rules Committee per Rule 6, please.
The Finance and Rules Committee has met and they recommend to waive rules to act upon late resolutions.
Need a motion. Lisa, second by Dick. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That carries. Tonight we have a public hearing and privilege of the floor. The public hearing is on the inclusion of 2 parcels located in the town of Watson and 1 parcel in the town and village of Krogan to agricultural district number 6. Is there anyone here that would like to comment on that public hearing involving those parcels? We'll leave that open for 30 minutes in case someone changes their mind or shows up. And we'll move to privilege of the floor. Is there anyone here that would like privilege of the floor for any comments or discussion? We'll leave that open. Presentations of petitions, communications, and notices, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Letters were received from the town of Watson. The first was regarding the resignation of Gerald Kroll, town supervisor, effective January 3rd. Town councilman Jeffrey Ho was appointed to fill the vacant town supervisor position for the remainder of the year. The town board then appointed Sean Freeman to fill the vacant council seat. The second letter was regarding the resignation of Christina Mary, town clerk, effective February 28th. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Reports of county officers and departments, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Legislators received copies of the highway and solid waste audit reports for February, as well as the treasurer's monthly report. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Reports of standing committees. Tom, would you like to start us off with finance and rules, please?
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion to authorize Planning Director Cassandra Buell to send out several RFPs for the NRBC and CDBG broadband project components.
Moved by Tom, second by Robin. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
And I'd like to make a motion to authorize change order number 2 to the contract of MJ's Contracting for additional asbestos removal at the downtown stabilization project, the old jail, in the amount of $9,184, which is covered under grant funding.
Moved by Tom, second by Josh. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
I'll abstain, Mr. Chair.
So Ian abstaining, please, and the motion carries.
And that's all I have at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions for Tom? Thank you, Tom. We'll move to the with General Services Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion to award bids for sand, gravel, crushed stone, and concrete based on project locations in accordance with the tabulation of all bid prepared for by the highway superintendent and placed on file with the clerk of the board for the period of April 1st, 2022 to March 31st, 2023.
Moved by Ian, second by Dick. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
I have another motion, Mr. Chairman. It's a motion to authorize Sheriff Carpinelli to refill one part-time deputy sheriff position effective immediately, and I'll make that motion.
Moved by Ian, second by Tom. Discussion. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
That's all I have.
Any questions for Ian? Thank you, Ian. And we'll move to Lisa with Health and Human Services.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have two motions. I would like to make a motion to authorize Public Health Director Ashley Wake to refill one full-time administrative assistant position effective immediately.
Moved by Lisa, second by Andrea. Discussion. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
And then I'd like to make a motion to authorize Social Services Commissioner Jennifer Jones to refill one full-time case aide position effective immediately.
Moved by Lisa, second by Andrea. Discussion. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
And that's all for me.
Any questions for Lisa? Thank you, Lisa. We'll move to Dick, the board's representative on the hospital board of managers.
Okay. We have several new managers up there, and they were introduced to the board at our last meeting last Wednesday. Okay, is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. Lucy Austin is pharmacy director. Sherry Byers, director of rehabilitation services. Tracy DeBoy, interim nurse manager maternity. Earl Durr, interim nurse manager ED. Jessica Nichols, nurse manager ICU and Med-Surg. Emily Paulson, staff development coordinator. Sarah Robbins, director of activities. Travis Rupert, director of food services. The employee of the month for December was Julie Emery, nurse practitioner. You see Julie up there at the hospital. Congratulate her, please. Then we acknowledge two team members who are retiring. Recognized for Sue Hill, a cook for 38 years, and Deborah Sussis, RN case manager for 17 years. We had a presentation on elder care services. PowerPoint was presented to the board. Nursing home topics, quality indicators, staffing update, and certifications. The nursing home received no deficiencies related to state reportable incidents in 2020 or 2021. And at this time, Mr. Kayer would like to update us on the construction project.
Mr. Kayer.
Thank you. So this has been our timetable. On the 17th, project went out to bid. On the 26th of January, the construction pre-bid walk occurred. And on Friday of this week, March 4th, we will be opening our bids in the Herman Conference Room at the hospital. I have passed on to Ryan, if any of you are interested in attending in person. It's at 2 o'clock, or if you want to watch online, that link has been sent. I also tonight left with you a copy of our economic and community benefits report. So those of you who have been around for a little bit will have seen this in the past. So the last time I presented our economic activity at that time, our impact to the community was $115 million. Even with the challenges of COVID in 2020, we had growth and it increased to $120 million. So it really speaks to the important role the health system plays into the economic well-being of Lewis County. That's really what we're trying to show here. So if you have any questions after you have reviewed it, please don't hesitate to give me a call. Thank you.
Any questions for Jerry? Thank you, Jerry. Okay, we'll move on to the county manager report, Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A group from the county were able to take a walk through the Glenfield school building on Monday, and it's, in decent shape, kind of what we thought. Joan's working with the owners to move quickly on the closing date. Once we have, more regular access to the building, we'll obviously invite the legislators to come through the building as well, take a look at what the county's getting ourselves into. I spent some time today with Jenny Jones and some of her managers at DSS, kind of talking about space and some of the needs that, they're going to need and how we can kind of break up the building. One thing that we'll bring forward, I think, at the committee meeting, probably in a couple weeks, is we're going to need some discretionary funds to work on the building once we've closed on the property. There's, certain areas that are going to need a secured door, for example, where perhaps there wasn't a secured door there now. There's a couple minor leaks on the roof, things like that we're going to have to address before we move our staff in. But overall, the building's in good shape, and it'll absolutely suit our needs for 9 months to a year as the construction is going on Stowe Street. So good news there. I shared with everybody last Friday, or 2 Fridays ago, in fact, that we had some flooding up at the jail. That was, we ended up figuring out that was due to a blocked tile drainage, storm drainage, where water had gotten in and frozen. Matt's team was able to unclog that blockage and alleviate a lot of the pressure. The inmates were returned. We had to outboard them due to the flooding for about a week, but they were returned last Thursday, and they're back at our facility. We will be doing the HVAC renovation project this summer up at the jail. And Matt and I had a nice conversation today, and I know the folks at the jail and the sheriff's office agree. We're gonna have to move everybody out, the inmates out for that construction anyway, when we're doing the HVAC project. It would probably be a good time to do some other things up there. We got a list of some items, not expensive, but as long as we've got the building to ourselves, now would be the time to, put down an epoxy floor and change some things that have just been dated in the inmate pods for quite some time. So that's an update on that. Broadband update. You saw, Tom, we're ready to send some things out to bid for the grants that we have received. Unfortunately, we did not receive the NTIA federal funding that we've been waiting on. It was supposed to be announced back in September. It continually got delayed. They finally did announce it. I don't feel too bad that we didn't get awarded because not a single project in New York State got awarded. So that is probably an indication that in many ways we're probably ahead of other parts of the country here, even in rural parts of New York State. Regardless, it was kind of I wouldn't say it's a good thing we didn't get the grant, but it's a good thing that they were finally announced because now we can move forward because we've been waiting. We weren't going to spend money that we'd set aside for broadband until we knew for certain that we weren't going to be eligible for federal funds. So now that we know that, we can really start moving forward. So folks that have been working on that broadband ad hoc committee, expect, reach out here and we'll have everybody, get back together and we'll start discussing, basically we'd like to fund some of the projects that we didn't receive federal funding for, fund them out of our pot of money. Let's see. Phil and I were chatting, and everyone's welcome to join at the John C. Herman Conference Room for the bid opening on Friday, as Jerry mentioned. We'll also have, we'll put it on the big screen here, so if you guys are going to have that either dial in or Teams, meeting, Google Meet that you guys do, we'll have it on in here. So it's kind of a cramped space at the conference room there. Folks that want to come in, if you got business here in the courthouse anyways, pop up and we'll have it here so folks can participate. Last but not least, the NISAC conference in Albany is March 14th through the 16th. Last call, the hotel rooms will probably fill up if they haven't already, so if anybody is interested in attending, they need to let us know. We did chat with our lobbying group this morning, and we decided it would be a good idea to pull together a coalition of interested counties while we're at the NISAC meeting. So I'm going to work with the folks at NISAC and our partners at Park Strategies, and we're either going to put together a lunch or a dinner for counties that are interested in kind of joining this coalition to talk about reforms that can be made with motorized recreation in New York State. So that is my report. Any questions?
Yeah, Ryan, it is, you and I had talked, I just thought maybe the rest of the board should know, Mark Walczyk was over to the Republican committee meeting the other night. I had a chance to talk with him for a few minutes. And I asked him to get the stuff that Patty Ritchie had on side-by-sides, weight limit and registration. She was one of the best people, along with Mrs. Little, that helped us over the years. So he said he would grab everything she's got in her file and refresh his memory on. Then I told him about the team that is helping us. So he said he'd love to meet with you and them at some time, just get a hold of him. Wonderful. But he should be a good supporter for us on that event.
Ryan, in your discussions with Park groups, could you get them to give us their opinion or summary of this natural gas and propane situation? Whether they think that law is gonna pass and what the impacts might be. There's several people that have propane, and I understand it's not gonna be banned, but if future is banned, then the price is probably gonna go up, and they're concerned about that. So it'd be nice to get their input of what they think might happen.
Yeah, well, we ran into that already with the state trying to limit natural gas expansion, right? When we were, looking at some of these capital projects. So, that's something that's going to affect rural areas for sure. We can look into that.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ryan. Move on to the county treasurer report, please.
Thank you. Yes, you have my written reports. Just a couple of quick highlights. As you can see, our sales tax, so far the beginning of the year, we're at $1,075,000, 33% over last year. So that's a great start to the year. I did have a note on there about some new investing we will be entering into with treasury bills. Rates are going up, so that's a place where we can take advantage of that. And we'll actually be transferring some funds for that tomorrow. And a question from Legislator Hathaway I thought would be good to bring to your attention on our auction process. We normally would be kind of right in the middle of that. We have pushed the timing back a little bit this year. To some extent, just to get away from some of the activity in the winter months, and Candy Aiken thanked me for that a couple of days ago. Their staff would be out now, posting properties, et cetera. So we decided to push it back a little bit. Our last day to repurchase properties will be May 16th, and then our tentative auction date is August 17th. We'll keep you updated on that as things move along. The key date is May 16th for people to make their payments by that date. Any questions? I'll do my best to answer them.
Thank you, Eric. Report of the Financial Rules Committee per Rule 7, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Finance and Rules Committee reports that they have examined the claims presented for payment in the total amount of $2,659,380.96 and recommend that they be audited and allowed for the amounts claimed.
Need a motion, please. Lisa, second by Ron. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That carries. So one of the resolutions is the seeker process on the DSS building. Chuck Brooks is here with us. We've got a few minutes here. If anyone has any questions on that process, maybe we can talk about that now.
Mr. Chairman, we actually have two resolutions involving seekers. One is for the DSS project and one is for the highway garage. The highway garage being a type 1 property, correct, Judge?
That's correct. The DSS project was determined to be a type 2 action, so it was a short form that was provided to the county. The documents that I have here in my hand, these are this is the long reading form. There's parts 1, 2, and 3 for the type 1 action at the highway garage. If you got a second, I'll pass them out. That way everybody is able to have one in front of them. Let's see. There's 3 over here.
And that has the correction for the fire department.
It does. I'll highlight the couple corrections. We went through the documents to make sure all our I's were dotted and T's were crossed, and there's 7 here, which would provide one for everybody. And I have 2 left. I can leave one. I would like to have one just for
Yeah,
myself.
it's fine, because we also have the original ones that you sent in the packet today, so we have to.
The other changes that you should be aware of, one of them, there was a item that was filled out with a estimated depth to bedrock that was filled in just on the state's database as 2 feet. But on the highway garage site, we've done some site-specific borings, 5 of them to be specific, and we didn't hit rock within the first 25 feet. So that answer has been adjusted to the site-specific answer of more than 25 feet. The other blank that was filled in was the square footage of the proposed buildings to be heated and cooled. Not something that would affect the overall seeker decision, but it was an item on the form. So it's those 3 modifications to the forms that you have, Judge.
Larry, if I could, I was gonna wait for that to come up, but this is just a good time to comment on it. There's so much data in that secret form to read. If we could get some of it a little ahead of time, or since we have a building committee, so to speak, maybe have them review it with the people that are filling it out, because like the fire department one that he mentioned, I would bet you that was a cut and paste for something else, because otherwise I don't know how you'd have known about the West Turner Fire Department. So, that's something we could have helped you catch as well.
Right. I did talk to the environmental engineer that filled that out, and he didn't really. He said he looked it up on Google, and he picked what he thought was the closest fire department. But that was a good catch.
I figured it was something like that.
If that's what it was.
What happens is when we send those on to the agencies, the planning departments and stuff, we had one here a while back with the water system that said Lavo gets their water out of Black River. Well, that was, we could have caught that and solved that too.
That's right.
The rest of that report gets tainted and yellowed on that type of stuff. So just a thought for maybe moving forward.
So those 3 items were the only 3 that were changed from the items that we provided to the county previously.
One of the questions I would have on the depth of bedrock, I thought we blasted when we brought a line from the Mennonite place back down along the road. And that wouldn't have been more than 5 or 6 feet. But I've heard the 25 feet before too, so there must be something in there where that thing takes a drop.
So what I know from the history of doing the Ed Center project is up the hill further.
Yeah.
Bedrock is real shallow.
That's what I was
When we
saying.
brought the water line down to the Ed Center, we did have to blast.
That's what I thought.
But then when we brought the sewer line down the hill and into the structure right behind the existing highway garage, they didn't encounter any rock. In fact, they did some directional drilling at the time under the railroad crossings, and as you know, that's pretty challenging to do through bedrock.
Oh, yeah.
So 3 of the 5 borings were within the footprint of the highway garage itself. The other 2 borings were near the proposed cold storage building and a proposed wash bay. And none of them hit bedrock within 25 feet. One of them, I think, was at 33 feet, the other was at like 26, 27 feet. So
That's good news for us.
it is, yeah. Especially because we're gonna be, there is gonna be a fair amount of cut on the southwest corner of the new highway garage. So.
That explains the bedrock.
So, I don't know how you want to handle the seeker process, but typically we are here to answer questions as we go through the questionnaire. There's, we brought all three forms. We filled them out, or the state has filled in answers from their database. But as you know, this is, as lead agency, you'll walk through this. I want to introduce Bill Perrine. Bill was the lead civil engineer on the project. We also brought some other information in case any questions come up as we're going through the seeker process.
Good evening, everyone. As Chuck mentioned, if you'd like, I have a few sample drawings. It's always easy to reference as we're going through some of these questions. I have a map. I could take a minute to pass those out. I'll mostly direct your attention to the last page in your packet. The beginning is just more for information purposes.
So Chuck, just so you know that the legislators were provided with this a week or so ago. So if we're gonna go through it, maybe we can just,
I can help walk through it.
okay, and go through it as expeditiously as we can to make sure we cover everything and answer any questions, but they have had the opportunity to look at it.
Okay, so it actually shouldn't take that long if you want to do a page turn. The majority of the questions that you would be answering would be in part two. So we can start off with part one if everybody wants to start at the I don't want to get anybody's way back here, but I'll sit down so people can see if everybody wants to start the cover page. That's just a project description, listing yourself as the lead agency and the applicant. Name of the applicant is Ryan Pichet is the county manager. And the project description describing the project involving renovations to the existing highway garage, interior renovations, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, lighting system replacement, replacing the cold storage building with a new unheated storage building, and a new 20,000 square foot highway main garage, which would include a welding and sign shop. That's the first page. On the second page, it goes through government approvals. As you know, we've gone through a coordinated review. I know Joan sent out notifications to all interested agencies, and I believe you've received back any responses that you expect, and the 30-day window has expired, correct?
Yes.
So the government approvals, funding, or sponsorship, as you've elected for a municipal exemption, there's no government entity other than yourselves that would be required to conduct site plan approval, which is why those first three, with the city council, the city, town, or village planning board, the city, town, or village zoning board of appeals are marked no. State agencies is marked yes. As you know, there is a stormwater pollution prevention plan as part of the project because of the size of the site work and the impervious surface being added. So that would bring into New York State DEC into the project. And there was a necessary historical review by SHPO because of the location of the highway garage being within an archaeologically sensitive area. You know that SHPO letter was sent out, and we received back a letter of no effect, which you have in your records. And those were both completed in December of 2021. No federal agencies. no coastal resources. No, now we're down into planning and zoning. Will administrative or legislative adoption or amendment of a plan, local law, or ordinance be required? The answer to that is no. Any municipally adopted comprehensive land use plans. As you know, the site is currently operated by the highway department, so there's no change of use there, and there's no comprehensive land use plan that would need to be modified in any way. It's not a brownfield opportunity area, and it is not wholly or partially in an area listed as an open space plan.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Up on the top there, you've got city, town, or village planning board commission, and then you say town of Lowell, New York planning board site plan review, and then yes is checked there.
Did you get, are you looking at the one I just handed out? That's the, I guess there was one other change.
I'm looking at the one that was given to us for tonight's meeting, which is probably an older one.
It is, that's the one with the, we updated that, with the letter and the discussion with the town.
So that's a no now, right?
That is a no, yes.
That was my question.
So, the next page goes into zoning, and, the site is currently in zoned I-1 industrial. It is a permitted use within that zone. Existing community there's no zoning change. Existing community services, these forms are based around residential and multifamily residential development. So some of these questions may sound a little odd for the building that we're building, but it's all part of the form. The school district where the project site's located is Lowville High School, and Lowville Police Department and Sheriff's Department are law enforcement agencies. Lowville Fire Department provides fire protection and emergency medical services. And then there's a question about parks in the area. And so some of them were listed. The next goes into project details. We filled this in based on the documents that have been bid and awarded. It goes through the total acreage of the site and the acreage to be physically disturbed. Those are 6.48 and 5.13 acres respectively. And total acreage that's owner controlled by the applicant that matches the project acreage of 6.48. It is not an expansion of an existing project or use. These are new buildings that are being built on the area across from East Road. And the renovation going on inside the existing highway garage does not expand the building footprint of the existing highway garage. The project is not proposed for multiple phases. As you know, the project was bid as a single phase project. And lists the duration of construction, which I think everyone is aware of. The target is 18 months.
So the question about is a cluster conservation layout proposed, that should be a no, right?
That is one of the if yes questions, so that doesn't actually require a checkbox because the item D was listed as no.
Okay.
So, so item F, does it include new residential uses? No. Item G is asking about the total number of structures. The total number of structures is 4, 3 new structures, with the 4th structure being the renovation of the existing highway garage. The dimensions of the largest proposed structure are listed there, and the approximate extent of building space to be heated or cooled. That 33,280 square feet encompasses the new highway garage, the existing highway garage, the wash bay, and the utility entrance room in the unheated storage building, which is, I think, 8 by 10, so 80 square feet in that building. The proposed action will result in the impounding of stormwater. There's a subsurface underground retention storage chamber system for stormwater management. If you have any questions, that's one of the reasons I brought Bill. We had, as part of our stormwater design, we had to be cognizant of the existing highway swale on the state highway. And so as part of the design, there's an underground chamber, stormwater chamber system, to allow that to percolate into the groundwater. That's part of the SWIP. And the principal source of that water is surface runoff from rainfall events. It also gives the dimensions. Before we move on, does anybody have any questions about that? Okay. Does the proposed action involve any excavation? Yes, it does. We're excavating for site grading, utilities, and building construction, as is typical. The question about how much volume is proposed to be removed from the site, at this point, the answer to that is 0. Any of the material being excavated from the highway garage site is being relocated per the site grading, to another area of the site, so none of it is slated to be moved off the site. There will be dewatering. It's typical of building and utility construction to dewater open trenches. We do not expect that excavation will require blasting, and that's based on what I just discussed about the depth of bedrock. There are no wetlands in the area where we're constructing the highway garage. And so the next several questions are really about the local environmental protection, any of the streams, but we don't expect that the construction will result in any disturbance of bottom sediments. That's typically if you were going to be utility routing across open streams, things like that. We don't have any of that. We're not going to be destroying or removing any aquatic vegetation. The proposed action or use does create a demand for water. There's new buildings going in, and there will be a new demand for water. That action is obtaining water from the existing water supply, and that has been coordinated with the water authority. And found that the existing water does have the capacity to serve the project, and there is no expansion of the district needed. And there are existing lines that serve the project site. There's an extension of a 8-inch public water main across East Road to serve the new highway garage. And the source of the water supply is Lowville Municipal Water Supply. The proposed project will not generate liquid wastes. And that's, if you were surface pumping liquid waste and any of our wastes are going into the sewer system. Yes, sir?
The water supply, Lowell Municipal Water System, wouldn't that be the town of Lowell versus the village? Because I think that's outside the village, so isn't that in the town water district?
It is in the town water district, but their supply still comes from the village, right?
I believe that's where the water main comes
They're
from.
the billing agency and stuff.
Well, that's a good point. The billing will come from the town.
Yes, but the source of the water and looking at the available supply is what this is getting at.
Okay.
And so we've coordinated with the water supplier to ensure that there didn't need to be any expansion of any facilities to service the new water dam. Looking at the public wastewater treatment facilities, the wastewater treatment plant to be used, Lowville Wastewater Treatment Plant in the District of Lowville. There is no expansion of that district needed, and there is sewer available on site. The expansion or extension of the existing district to serve the new project. It asks for a description. Description is a private Lowville County Highway Department 6-inch sanitary sewer lateral will connect to the existing sanitary sewer manhole at East Road. A new sanitary lift station is proposed adjacent to the existing lift station with a connection to the existing 2-inch force main. Does anybody have any questions about that? I assume you're aware of that part of the project where we're replacing the existing lift station with a new lift station with some increased capacity. There's no new treatment district being formed. The next item is targeted towards the reason why we developed the stormwater pollution prevention plan. The project will disturb more than 1 acre and create surface runoff. So the impervious surface, the new impervious surface areas equal out to 0.49 acres. The parcel size is 6.51 acres. The new county highway garage and associated parking areas directed to an on-site stormwater management system. That's the description of the stormwater management on-site. Do you want to add anything to that, Bill, that I missed, or?
No, not unless there's questions.
And that was all in the SWIP and that was approved.
Yes, ma'am. There will be no stormwater runoff onto adjacent properties. And the proposed plan does minimize impervious surfaces. With the addition of the underground storage chamber, provides a means for that stormwater to infiltrate back into the groundwater. Does the proposed action include or will it use on-site one or more sources of air emissions, including fuel combustion? This answer is yes, but that's primarily for construction use, and then, it's operationally, there's a lot of heavy equipment that the highway department uses. There's no additional sources of air emissions, other than what's already there. Some of the POVs that are moving to the offices at the renovated highway garage, and then the equipment that will physically be used to construct the buildings. But that's why that one's answered yes. The air emissions named in D2F above do not require a New York State air registration, facility permit, or Title IV or Title V permit. The proposed action will not generate or emit methane, nor will it release air pollutants from open air operations or processes such as a quarry or landfill. Proposed action does not result in a substantial increase in traffic above present levels or generate substantial new demand for transportation facilities or services. All of the vehicles that are going to be across the road are currently across the road at East Road. The new traffic to the area will consist of privately owned vehicles of staff using the offices in the renovated highway garage. But we did not feel that constituted a substantial increase to traffic. Does anybody have any questions on that one? Okay. The proposed action will generate a new demand for energy, but the proposed action does not require an upgrade to the existing substation or primary electrical utility. The hours of operation during construction are listed as 7 to 5, and during operation, Monday through Friday, 24 hours of operation, and then Saturday, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. And that's really related to the operation of the highway department and any emergency vehicles that might need to operate out of that highway department. Like snow removal, things like that. Will the proposed action produce noise that exceeds ambient noise levels? No. The site is currently being used for what it's going to be used for, so ambient levels will remain consistent. We're not removing any natural barriers that could act as a noise barrier. We are adding new lighting in the form of outdoor lighting wall packs attached to the exterior of proposed buildings. Approximate height is 10 feet, but there's no light poles being proposed. Proposed action will not remove any barriers that act as a light barrier screen. For those that have been out there, it's already a gravel parking lot. It's already open. We're not adding any additional bulk storage of petroleum. The bulk storage of petroleum that is on the project site has already been constructed and was covered under a previous action. We're not, the proposed action doesn't use pesticides, herbicides, insecticides during construction or operations. The proposed action will require management or disposal of solid waste. We checked that yes, because right now it's all planned to be, on the site, but there is going to be some of the existing fill material, but there is removal of some existing building structure, right? The existing cold storage building will be demolished and will have to be hauled off site, and the office area inside the existing highway garage and the welding shop will all be material that will have to be disposed of as solid waste. The proposed action, though, does not require a modification of the solid waste management facility, nor does it involve the commercial generation, treatment, storage, or disposal of hazardous waste. The next area talks about the site and setting a proposed action, and gets a little bit into any endangered species. The first box is to check existing land uses in the area. The list, and this gets checked. These boxes get checked by the state's program when you list the project site. These get automatically filled out based on the state database. And the state database checked commercial, rural, non-farm, forest, agricultural, and aquatic. Land coverage, roads, buildings, and other paved impervious surface. The current acreage is 4.1. The acreage after project completion will be 4.88, so that's an increase of 0.78 acres of additional impervious surface. There is no change to any forested areas. Meadows, grassland, or brushlands, non-agricultural, including abandoned agriculture. That's the lawn area, grass area on the property. Currently 1.58 acres. After project completion, there will be 0.81 acres remaining, meaning a loss of 0.77 acres, which pretty closely matches up to the increase of 0.7 acres of impervious area. Surface water features like lake, ponds, streams, rivers, etc. Current acreage is 0.8, acreage after completion 0.79, a loss of 0.01 acres, and I believe that relates to the drainage swale down by East Road. Right. Project site is not being used for public recreation currently. There are not any facilities serving children, elderly, or people with disabilities. Project site does not contain an existing dam. It has not been used prior as a solid waste management facility, and there haven't been any hazardous waste being generated, treated, or disposed of at the site. It's not a hazardous waste disposal site. There was, when we did the search in the contamination history, there was one spill incident that was recorded. It appears to be a fuel oil, small fuel oil spill that was cleaned up. That goes into the database because it generates a DEC ID number. But it's not going to be a problem here because it's actively being used by the highway department for maintenance, unheated storage, and fueling, and based on that report, that DEC ID number was cleared and accepted. The cleanup was accepted by the DEC. It's not subject to institutional controlling limiting property uses. It's not a hazardous waste site. There's no engineering controls. What those are is if you had a hazardous waste site where anybody working in it had to have additional training of any kind, those would be engineering controls. We don't have any of that on our site. The depth to bedrock was what I was describing earlier. On our project site, our borings indicate that the bedrock is over 25 feet down. However, as you mentioned previously, bedrock in the area can range from very shallow to very deep. So we did list that there are bedrock outcroppings on the project site. I don't expect that they'll be within the limits of the construction work being proposed. But to be on the safe side, you never know with bedrock. I've seen 25 feet down and then 10 feet away you could encounter it. So that's why that's answered yes. Predominant soil types present on the site, that comes out of the state database. The average depth to the water table on the project site is 2.5 feet. Again, that's off the state database. Those soils are listed as well-drained or moderately well-drained soils. Most of the project site is relatively flat, 79% of it at 0 to 10% grade. 1% of that site is at a grade of 10 to 15%. And then there is 20% of the existing site that's at a 15% or greater. This is the existing site. And as you are aware, there's a bit of an area that we affectionately refer to as the ski slope that is on the project site that has a pretty steep grade. That is the location of most of the cut being proposed for the project. The surface water features, the project site, there's no wetlands or delineated wetlands within the project site, but the water that comes off the site encounters a large highway swale at the state highway, and then is conveyed down to a water body. The stream name is 805.539. I'm sure it has another name, but that is the name the state gave it. But it is not in a designated floodway, 100-year floodplain, 500-year floodplain, and it's not located over immediately adjoining any principal aquifer. There are a number of wildlife species that occupy the project site on the state database. However, none of those are listed as endangered species, and there's no restriction that popped up for anything like we normally see on these construction projects, limiting tree removal or anything like that. We don't have any of that on our site. Let's see, project site or adjoining area currently used for hunting, trapping, fishing, or shell fishing. The project site is not. That's why that is listed no. There's some private property around there. I'm sure somebody's probably hunting on some of the private property, but the project site that we're constructing on is a publicly owned site restricted to hunting and fishing. So fishing there.
Can we move down to the designated public resources one where you check yes, just so you can explain that to the legislators?
There are two there that were
Yeah.
checked, yes. So the first one is it's in a designated agricultural district. And so even though Lewis County owns the property, it's being used currently for the highway garage, or not for the highway department. The proposed highway garage is going on current highway department property. It is immediately adjacent and connected to agricultural district and farmland. So there, we through the design of the project, we've accommodated access to that farmland via a access easement, to the neighboring property, and we, had to take into account any adjacent farmland to make sure that it wasn't going to impact any operations of the adjacent farmers. Is there anything else I need to add to that, Bill? Any questions on that?
And then on the next page, Chuck, where you checked off yes about the historic preservation office, SHPO, they signed off on that?
Yeah, we talked about that on like the first or second page of the interested agencies. That whole area of East Road is part of an archaeologically sensitive area. It's all within SHPO's database. So when you do a project within that area, you have to reach out to SHPO and see, have them make a determination. And they gave us a determination, a letter of no effect. So we've already cleared it with SHPO. But because of the boundaries of that area, we had to make that coordination of the project. It does fall within 5 miles of any officially designated publicly accessible federal, state, or local scenic or aesthetic resource. I would say that's probably why a lot of you live up here. However, it's not going to negatively impact any of those areas that we listed. So that's the end of the part 1. And at this point, item G is where you would certify that the above information is true to the best of your knowledge. I don't think we have to stop at this point to go through that. We can move right on to part 2, right, Bill?
Yeah, and the agency would complete, if they're all in agreement, would complete part 3 of the determination.
So under part 2, if I could just kind of move it along a little bit, for each number identified, impact on land, you say that it may, but then you go through the specifics of how it may affect, and you determine that there's a very small impact under any of those conditions, correct?
That was our assessment.
Yes, okay. So just so the legislators see that, in case they have any questions on any of those particular items under number 1.
So I should say that we filled this out to assist you, but these are our calls to recommend, but not our calls to determine finally. So these answers can be discussed, but this is what we filled in based on our design and our knowledge of the project in the area. Do you want me to go through these too, Joan, or you?
No, I think, for the legislators, I would, we take recommendations from experts all the time. You're recommending that the county determine no on those particular sub-items. So unless any of the legislators have any specific questions on any of those, I think we could move on to the next section.
By next section, do you mean the next question in
Number
part
2, yeah,
Okay.
impact on geological features.
Yeah, so we obviously listed no, because there's no national landmarks in the area. The item 3 was the impacts on surface water. We are adding some impervious area. I think Bill's done a good job of handling that stormwater, and I think that the SWIP bears that out. So that's why the sub-items are listed as no or small impact may occur. And the same thing holds true with groundwater. We listed no for impact on flooding. We're not in the flood zone, or we're not in the floodplain, and we're not directing water in such a way that it's gonna negatively impact adjoining properties. That's, again, all part of the stormwater pollution prevention plan. Item 6, impacts on air, we listed no. And again on item 7.
There wasn't any hydrochlorofluorocarbons? Wow.
You just wanted to
Incredible.
say that.
You had to say something.
As I said, Ryan, when you get to a type 1 action, it's a very involved process. And a lot of these questions are maybe not geared towards our project, but still part of the form. Again, we listed no on plants and animals. As I said, there's no endangered, protected or endangered species within the project area. We listed yes on impact on agricultural resources. I think a lot of that had to do with the adjacent properties. But as I said, and as Ryan and Joan both know, we've I think done our due diligence to not impact the operations of the adjoining agricultural use. Impact on aesthetic resources. There's going to be some new buildings on the site, but it's a gravel lot now with a pole barn. So
It'll look a lot better.
if anything, it's probably improves the aesthetic resources. And as I said before, we cleared with SHPO to get the letter of no effect, so there is no impact on historic or archaeological resources. Item 11 is impact on open space and recreation. It's not currently being used for recreation. That's really geared towards parks and loss of parkland. That doesn't apply here. Nor is this a critical environmental area. Because a CEA is a specific designation under the state secret process, and that doesn't apply for the project area. For 13, we listed no on impact to transportation. The reason behind that is that the highway vehicles that are currently at the site are going to largely be in the same area. But I will stop there in case anybody has any questions or wants to talk about that at all. Okay. Impact on energy. This is really talking more about upgrades to substations or primary electrical or, large proposed energy demand that is going to cause a need for an upgrade to a local utility. That doesn't apply for us. The existing primary electrical utility can service the proposed action. We did list a impact on noise, odor, and light. Primarily that's during construction, because like I said, once it gets in operation, it's not going to be that much different than what's there now. But there is a period of 18 months where there will be construction operations ongoing. And there are some wall packs being added to the outside of proposed buildings. Impact on human health. That's really geared more towards, if you're located close to a hospital or a nursing home or something like that, that doesn't apply for us.
Oh, I thought it was for Tim's employees. I thought it would improve their health.
That's probably true, but that's not really what that part of the form is asking. Consistency with the community plan. This is really just a check for the lead agency to review the project and make sure that it's not inconsistent with any community plans. Or the next one is consistent with community character. Again, that's a check for the lead agency to ensure that the project being proposed is consistent with the character of the community. And then you get down to part 3. Oh. Okay. No, thank you. Bill just pointed something out, and it may be, are they new light poles? Okay. Apparently, one of the modifications to the project before it went out to bid was to add some new light poles. So, Bill, have you guys been aware of that, or this might be a good opportunity? Bill, why don't you show them where the light poles are gonna be? That does change one of the answers. And so as you're filling out this form, you'll have to mark out, that one answer. What page is that? Page 8?
Yeah, on part 1, page 8 of 13, I would just encourage for letter N, like Nancy, I would encourage the board at the end of that explanation to cross out the word no. The light poles that are proposed are only a few, and this to facilitate the use of the site for the highway crew and their vehicles. With our photometric codes, we have to keep all foot candle levels less than 1 at property lines, and everything's downward shielded so it doesn't spill out onto public right-of-ways or neighboring properties.
See, I knew there was a reason I brought Bill.
So what you're suggesting is in letter NI on page 8 of part 1, is at the end of that, what you wrote in there, that exterior light poles are proposed.
Yes, cross off the word no and capitalize the letter E.
And do we have to write anything further about that impact?
I don't believe so. I just think it'd be good for the board to have consistency.
So we'll make that change.
Good catch, guys. Okay, so that takes us to the end of the part 2. As I said, normally that part 2 would have, when you get through the end of part 2, everybody would have, checked one of those boxes or agreed with the boxes that were checked before we move on to part 3. So
I would, do any of the legislators have any boxes that they would want to check otherwise, other than the amendment we made here? Yeah.
So that takes us to part 3. The open section on the first page of part 3 is where you would write, reasons supporting a determination or mitigating an explanation of why something is a significant impact. Since all the items were checked as minimal impact, there's nothing that needs to go there. The only other thing that could go here is if, for some reason, the board was looking to give a conditional approval or a conditional negative declaration. The conditions of that declaration would go here. I don't think that applies either, but this is your space to write, those conditions. The next page is the determination. So this would be where you would take your head count, I suppose, and as a board make your determination as lead agency.
So we have a resolution in the packet where the board will act on that, not only determined to be the lead agency, but also then to make the final determination.
I discussed it with Ryan. I think that does not want to be part of a slate vote. I
Okay,
believe that one wants to
roll call.
be
We'll
a
do it by
roll call
roll
vote,
call.
yeah.
Okay, we can do that.
Does anybody have any other questions?
Are we sure about the hydrochlorofluorocarbons?
I am sure. It's a bit of a dry form, but as you can see, it's a necessary process.
We appreciate you working with us.
Thank you,
through
Chuck,
it,
for helping us
you did right.
through that process.
You're welcome. We'll be here if anybody has any questions, and
Okay.
we do have the board that we can leave with Ryan. We'll be around to answer any of your questions.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Dave.
So back to the public hearing on the inclusion of 2 parcels located in the town of Watson and 1 parcel in the town and village of Krogan to agricultural district number 6. Is there anyone here that would like to comment on that public hearing? If not, we will at this time close that public hearing. And we will move on to resolutions. So what resolutions need to be pulled from the slate?
Mr. Chairman, I have number 38, number 40, number 41, number 42, number 54, number 57, and then both late resolutions, which are number 62 and number 63.
Does anyone have any others that they like to pull? Dick?
I'd ask for 40 and 41, but after this explanation.
They are
Yeah, but I said, they need it pulled. Well, they are pulled, because I just rescind my request for that, because this is what I was looking for. Was the presentation.
Well, we have to do the roll call vote, so that's why we're going to put them
Oh,
out.
okay.
Any other resolutions? If not, a motion to pass the remainder of the slate.
Right here.
Bill? Do I have a second? Josh? Any discussion? All in favor of the slate?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Slate carries. And then we'll move back to number 38.
Number 38, auditing and allowing claims in the amount of $2,659,380.96.
Moved by Lisa, second by Ron. Discussion. This is a roll call.
Yes, it is. Legislator Hathaway,
Yes.
Legislator Burns,
Yes.
Legislator Chartran,
Yes.
Legislator Leviker,
Yes.
Legislator Osborne,
Yes.
Legislator Verkler,
Yes.
Legislator Gilbert,
Yes.
Legislator Morahan,
Yes.
Legislator Nellenbach,
Yes.
and Legislator Dolha.
Yes.
The next one is resolution number 40, resolution establishing New York State seeker review, lead agency, and negative declaration with respect to proposed facilities improvement project at the Lewis County Highway Garage Campus.
Moved by Lisa, second by Ian. Discussion. And you want to do a roll call on this one also, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Legislator Osborne,
Yes.
Legislator Hathaway,
Yes.
Legislator Nellenbach,
Yes.
Legislator Verkler,
Yes.
Legislator Leviker,
Yes.
Legislator Burns,
Yes.
Legislator Morahan,
Yes.
Legislator Gilbert,
Yes.
Legislator Chartran,
Yes.
and Legislator Dolha.
Yes.
The next one is resolution number 41, resolution establishing New York State seeker review, lead agency, and negative declaration with respect to proposed facilities improvement project at the Department of Social Services campus.
Moved by Lisa, second by Ron. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, the only thing I would reference to the board on this one, the reason why we didn't have to go through that tedious process like the type 1 is because it is an unlisted action and it doesn't, it's a short form property, so I would recommend that the board sign off on the short form for that, for the DSS property.
Okay, is this a roll call?
Yes, it is. Legislator Burns,
Yes.
Legislator Chartran,
Yes.
Legislator Gilbert,
Yes.
Legislator Hathaway,
Yes.
Legislator Leviker,
Yes.
Legislator Morahan,
Yes.
Legislator Nellenbach,
Yes.
Legislator Osborne,
Yes.
Legislator Verkler,
Yes.
and Legislator Dolha.
Yes.
The next one is resolution number 42, resolution authorizing the issuance of up to $22,500,000 aggregate principal amount serial bonds of the County of Lewis, State of New York, pursuant to local finance law to finance the costs of the acquisition, construction, and reconstruction of improvements to county buildings.
Someone like to move it? Lisa, second by Ron. Any discussion?
Could we just note for the people at home that we won't be applying for 22 million? It'll be substantially less than that. Right, Joan?
Yes, it reads up to.
I understand it reads up to, but
You're
on the
clarifying.
surface, if somebody didn't realize that.
Just for information, the bids came in lower than we were anticipating. We raised this number because we were concerned that they might come in over. So, but it is for an up to amount, and we have no intention of going this far. So, anything else, Bill? Okay, so roll call.
Legislator Berkler,
Yes.
Legislator Gilbert,
Yes.
Legislator Morahan,
Yes.
Legislator Nellenbach,
Yes.
Legislator Hathaway,
Yes,
Legislator Burns,
Yes.
Legislator Chartran,
Yes.
Legislator Leviker,
Yes.
Legislator Osborne,
Yes.
and Legislator Dolhoff.
Yes.
The next one is Resolution 54, and this is authorizing opening of certain portions of county roads for ATV special event.
Moved by Lisa, second by Ian. Discussion.
Yeah, this looks like one of the best write-ups to that I've seen. And it displays a lot of work by a lot of people in here, so I thank everybody that worked on it to do that. The only question I've got is, we always have a question about the insurance policy, and have we received the insurance policy and reviewed it?
Yeah.
We will?
We will.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good, sounds good.
hopefully, within the next 2 weeks.
It's
So
always
we'll have
usually
time
towards
to
the
review.
end.
Yeah.
That's a lot of work.
I think an important note here is that the snow pals and our partners at the towns have worked closely together this year. And they've got 2 route options. One, just in case some of the minimal maintenance roads are quite soft and aren't able to handle all the traffic. So really a lot more cooperation and communication than we saw in previous years. So I think it should be a great event.
Anything else? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
The next one is Resolution 57, a resolution authorizing one-time funding and agreements with Lewis County snowmobile clubs.
Moved by Ian, second by Lisa. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman, show me abstaining in this resolution.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And show Legislator Leviker abstaining.
The next one is Resolution 62, resolution awarding bids and authorizing agreements between the County of Lewis and named contractors, companies identified for the 3 separate prime contracts under the Public Safety Building HVAC project.
Moved by Tom, second by Lisa. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Please show me as abstaining, Sandra.
Show Dick abstaining and the motion carries.
The last resolution is number 63, resolution appointing purchasing director.
Moved by Ron, second by Lisa. Any discussion?
I'd like to abstain.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And show Legislator Hathaway abstaining and the motion carries. Resolution carries. Under other business,
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to briefly express my family's gratitude to Lewis County Health System and Office for the Aging, as well as Lewis County Hospice for, my wife's grandmother passed away yesterday. They were all very helpful the last few months.
We have a proclamation saluting and commending all Lewis County volunteer fire and EMS members. Cassandra, if you would read that, please.
Certainly. Proclamation saluting all Lewis County volunteer fire and EMS members. Whereas throughout our history, the American spirit has been distinguished by the ready willingness of neighbors to join together and help one another. The tradition of voluntary community service is as important today as it was in the founding years of our country. And whereas the volunteer firefighters and EMS volunteers in Lewis County protect our lives, our families, and the economic life of our communities from the threat of destructive fires, often at great personal sacrifice. These volunteers are more than just firefighters or emergency medics, as they respond to a wide range of emergencies in our communities and are often volunteers for other community events. And whereas the volunteer fire and EMS members of Lewis County spend countless hours each year in training exercises to maintain and hone their life-saving exceptional skills while continuing to respond to fire and emergency calls. And whereas these trained and organized volunteers, our neighbors, are a valuable resource for our community, it is fitting and proper that a grateful county should recognize the vital contributions of the volunteer men and women who serve in these roles. And now, therefore, I, Lawrence L. Dahlhoff, Chairman of the Lewis County Board of Legislators, do hereby recognize and salute all our local fire and EMS volunteers for their continued commitment to our county. I also call upon all citizens to express their appreciation for the exemplary services provided by the dedicated members of our local volunteer fire and EMS departments, and for other members of our communities to consider volunteer service as well.
Can I add something to that?
Certainly.
I don't know whether you remember, but a week and a half ago, on a Saturday,
That's a long time.
yeah, I know. To put it nicely, the weather was challenging. But to put it properly, it was brutal. And it was wind and snow, and our local fire department put on an ice fishing derby. And there was 1,000 entries on Lake Bonaparte to that derby. And they were out there all day long. I think the cheeks are still red. Because it was terrible out there. But it was so well received, and they had raffles. There was over 150 items raffled, and I'm not talking a gallon of syrup. We're talking several hundred thousand, not 100,000, but several $1,000s worth of stuff. But it was nice because, and they're not the only ones that do things like that. I'm just pointing it out, but to bring in 1,000 people to the area, that contributes a lot to the economy of the area and the well-being of the area, because everybody had a great time in spite of that terrible weather. And again, the other fire departments all do their own thing, and they all have their fundraisers. They don't depend on the towns or whatever, because they do this additional stuff. I think it was good of you, Larry, to do the proclamation to recognize them for what they do.
Well, it certainly was with help from you, Phil. And I appreciate what you're saying about the Harrisville fishing derby, particularly because not only for, not to diminish what the volunteers do, but a close friend of mine won the largest trout in it. It was a 20-pound lake trout. It was a dinosaur of lake trout. So he's very pleased that they volunteered.
That was huge. I couldn't believe it. A 20-pound lake trout.
He's originally from Lyons Falls.
Oh, was he?
The fish are the friends.
Well, not sure. Maybe both.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have any other business? Motion to adjourn. Ron's job. Ron?
I can second.
Second by Dick. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.